The comments made and opinions given by show hosts and guests are not necessarily those of the All One broadcast or its sponsors.
When the sun lowers towards the horizon and the sky turns black, when lines blur and things are not exactly what they seem, when the normal makes way for the strange and unexplained, it's time to question what is natural and that which lies beyond our understanding. It's time to enter the edge of the unknown with your hosts, Mark Henry.
Welcome in, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me late on a Sunday evening, whether you're kicking your week off or wrapping your week up. This is Mark Henry. You're listening to The Edge of the Unknown here on the All One Broadcast Radio Network. A lot of different ways you can get a hold of me tonight and throughout the week. We'll talk a little bit about that. We've got a great guest coming up for you this evening. Hopefully, we're not going to offend too many people. Hopefully, we've gotten past that. I got some really snotty emails in the last few days. Actually, after I appeared on someone else's show, we actually had a staff meeting earlier today, and I didn't bring it up, but because that's my own business, and I'll handle that the way that I will on my own radio show. But hey, it's great to have you here. Winter Laake, my guest, coming up here this evening. We're going to talk to him for the next couple hours. If you want to get on board, I'm going to shoot those numbers and contact points out to you. But again, we have to do our quick few pieces of housekeeping. And again, if you're listening to us on the All One Broadcast Radio Network at all1broadcast.com, click on the button that says Live Chat Room. You can feel free to send me a message there. Interact with other folks who are listening at the same time. If you do have a specific question for my guest, please send it to me in a private message. And the only reason is this. The last few weeks, we've had lots of really great questions coming through that forum, and they kind of get lost in the shuffle. And if I go back to look for them and somebody else starts talking and typing into the box, it throws it back, and then I have to go back and look for it and go back and look for it. It's kind of a pain in the ass. Julie McDonald, who I know is listening, and I'm not supposed to swear on this network, but I think ass is okay if we do that. Good. All right. Our Winter's already laughing. We're going to get to him in a second. Want to remind everybody, we've got a lot of really cool things coming up in the next few weeks. Next week, Ron Bowles and Jim Sherman from the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization are going to be on. Richard Southall will be on the 23rd talking about his book Haunted Route 66, and kicking off the month of March, my buddy and yours, Thomas Fusco, author of Behind the Cosmic Veil. We're going to have our quarterly discussion. He's already got a whole bunch of things cooking, and he's super happy to come back on the Edge of the Unknown. For this evening, again, as I am wont to be, your moderator for the strange, the unexplained, the paranormal, Mark Henry, at your service, 717-298-7460. That is the number to get on board, 717-298-7460. You can always shoot me an email at theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. Find me on Facebook, Edge of the Unknown Radio Show. Like that page. Shoot me a message there. And, of course, A1B also has a Facebook page. You can always get in contact with me there. So, without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into this. Normally, I have a couple of other comments and some things that I've heard throughout the week, but I'm really, really excited to have the guest on tonight, as I've already mentioned, Mr. Winter Laake. He is a very, very talented person. He is not only an award-winning author of both prose and poetry, he is a screenwriter. He has his own brand of radio, which we'll talk a little bit about tonight. He is a purveyor of satanic, occult, and witchcraft incultations. I like that the way that actually says that better than the way that I said that he was a black magic practitioner. But we're going to talk about all those things. Satanism, black magic, his life, his work. That is our focus for this evening. We'd love to have you on board. You've got the numbers, you've got the emails, you've got the way to get on the Edge of the Unknown for the next 2 hours. Sit back It's going to be a fun ride. Mr. Laake, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out on a Sunday evening. It is a pleasure to have you on the Edge of the Unknown.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate being on your show. The work of Satanism and black magic is the fastest growing type of religion, if you could call it that, or ideology in the world. I think as the church edict dies, more and more people are coming to the fore of new satanic philosophy, as well as just general witchcraft and other supernatural aspects. I mean, it's an exponential growth, and it's something that is highly compelling material. I think people are learning to doubt more, and it goes to the philosophy of evil as the crux of mankind's inherent nature from the beginning of things, obviously predating a lot of the Christian aspects or even the Arab aspects, which actually came later that were introduced. So we have to go to the roots of mankind in its essence in order to understand that evil and to personify that as our nature. And I think Satanism is answering that call more and more. Obviously, having the history of Satanism in our modern record probably coming on stronger in the past 50, 60 years, it goes well beyond that. And it goes also into man's and humanity to man. Now, typically, there are a lot of scribblers that look to revision history. I'm not one of those types of people that bring that arsenal. But that is a problem, and I think even Satanism addresses that as well. It just cuts to the root of it. There's even a demon that known as Pazuzu that is something to be researched more and more as a centrality of our evil. That is the essence, even though the actual statue of Pazuzu has been destroyed in Iraq, which was where it was located. There is a small statue of Pazuzu located in the Oriental Museum in the Chicago University. I think it's the last vestige of it. There's a lot of irony around that, but having that going into the historical record of evil and Satanism, that is its central context. It's rooting in us as a humanity, and it showed from the beginning, if that makes any sense.
It does, and honestly, I want to jump back a little before we even get more into that sort of thing, because I've been doing this show for 5 years now on this radio station, and I was out previously on a different station here in Buffalo, New York. I would say without a doubt 99% of the people who actually told me how they grew up would say that they had a Christian background, whether they were Catholic, whether they were Presbyterian. The majority of folks, I would think, grew up in the United States, at least around these parts, grew up in that sort of thing, whether they went to Catholic school, they went wherever, it doesn't matter. They went to church every Sunday. How did you grow up? How did you get into Satanism and make it a part of your life?
Well, it was a natural progression. I'm not a Christian basher, and I'm not really into blasphemy in a lot of regards. Our culture is Christian, despite what people want to deny or believe, or whatever kind of misconception. Our laws and our gray force reality, in our manufactured reality that surrounds us, is definitely indoctrinated in Christian ideology. With that said, it wasn't my action to embrace Satanism as a thing to really break from that or whatever, in a sense. Although I did, in my findings as a small child, utilize it as a way to Satanism was found. It was something that it arrived. It arrived through supernatural experiences, and it is something that is sort of innate in us, or innate certain people that want to grasp it. Obviously, there's atheistic worship, the aesthetic of it. That's an aspect of more self-worship, and then you have death worship, and then you have satanic worship that is exterior from you. I embrace more the fact of the essence that I am my own God and so on and so on. But these philosophies are not anything new under the sun. They're actually been named in the 5,000 years of our historic record in looking at how, as we as a man are evolving. I feel that as a child, when I found supernatural experiences, psychic intrigues and things, and growing as a teenager, I was solving crimes and finding the missing and the murdered and so on. So it was more of a thing that had arrived. It didn't arrive necessarily out of a backlash. However, some of the backlash did come as well to break from the conditioning of the reality that we exist in for me. And what I'm into is not for everyone. I don't seek to convert. I'm not looking to be, a shepherd. I think people seek a shepherd to bind them, which is in anomaly in our culture. It is very hard to be a master. It is very easy to be a slave. In that said, the essence of me is a childhood in that is where it started. Then it grew into teenagers, obviously, very powerfully. And then, in adulthood, it's just made me my own master, my own God of my own reality and world. I seek to influence my own reality and to bend it to the nature of my own progression. Typically in any kind of form, whether it's witchcraft or whatever you're practicing. You can be in denial or not. That is the ultimate goal of it, is to, break from the conditioning of sheeple reality to bend and create financial security and to hold steadfast into that and to evolve even into the progression of the future, which is coming, which is a cataclysm, and to overcome that cataclysm even further. The intrigues of man are progressing to where, as we run out of our fossil fuels, and as we continue down this course, which is incursal to our nature of self-destruction, Satanism is a leap in order to overcome that. And there's also things in technology that are coming, the Satanic singularity, which can allow us to survive even further. Probably by 2020, we will experience our first true nuclear cataclysmic event. It would be naive to think that we could stave off nuclear cataclysm forever, since we have it in our reality. I think Satanism is even taking on a strength against that in the future, and black magic as well. So it started as a child, and it's been something that I have embraced. A lot of people, when it does arrive to those, I have no idea why that does. It is just something that happens. They would deny it or not embrace it. It's just, for me, I took it full on. I held steadfast, and I just rode my own current. A lot of these different ideologies are going against the grain. I just flowed with my own true satanic nature, and I embraced my inherent evil. Now, the deference of evil is very broad. There are tiers and archetypes to this type of evil. Is it an evil where I'm chasing people around and murdering them or seeking genocide? Absolutely not. However, there are those types that do. There are different levels to this. Is there compassion in mind? Yes. Is it a Mephistophelian aspect? Yes. But there are types. They're generally all around. I mean, there's different aspects to this evil, and there's different aspects of Satanism. Satanism can be extremely destructive as well as creative.
Well, you could say that, but I don't mean to interrupt you, but you could say that about any other religion or any other belief. I mean, very easily, that anyone could be just as destructive as it could be helpful.
Absolutely, and I think it's naive for a lot of people that are in Satanism to continue this course to say, oh no, it's in this purified nature. No, Satanism and aspects of it can be very destructive and carried out in many different levels. And obviously in our Illuminati aspect, there is a lot of denial in the aspect that I'm speaking of is the corporatism and the vampire reality that we live in that seek the desolation of mankind. My philosophy as an aspect of Satanism does not seek the desolation of mankind. However, mankind seeks its own desolation. And it's, as I said, going to happen in our lifetime. Absolutely will.
And everybody, if you're just joining the Edge of the Unknown, my name is Mark Henry, coming at you every Sunday evening here on the All One Broadcast Radio Network from 8 until 10 o'clock. My guest this evening, Winter Laake, and this is why I love having guests like you on, because, as I mentioned, I try to keep it conversational, and over here I'm scratching down things. This is not something I would have even asked at this portion of a regular show, but I just wrote it down. From your standpoint, why are those that might say, we are our own selves, as you said, we are our own God, our own masters, yet others are chastised for saying the same thing? I'm going to give you an example. A guy that I really, really like, and some of his books are just the most amazing books out there, a guy named Dan Millman, who talks a lot about finding your inner self, finding that person, finding that voice. And they made an unfortunate movie, which is not as good as his book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. People will look at that and go, hey, that's okay. But then if you come out and attach the word Satanism with it, you're a pariah. You're the worst thing ever. Why would that possibly happen when what you're talking about is essentially the same message?
It is essentially the same message. The pariahship occurs because the endowment of power. When we're looking at power and we're looking at the Illuminati, there's a rulership with it, and these types become megalomaniacs. These megalomaniacs, as we have seen Hitler and all of these different types of antichrists, and they continue to arrive, and they arrive every day, they're really bringing a lot of desolation. They're bringing the Einsatzkommando. They're bringing the chastisement, the cleansing, the purging of races. And that's why you're going to go there. That's why people are getting upset, and there's every reason to be. They're bringing a sword, and that sword is being brought against humanity by other humanity. It's man and humanity to man. And when you're talking something like peaceful warrior, it's a contradiction in terms. You cannot be a warrior and be peaceful. You will be bringing the sword. There's a lot of denial with that. Yes, I come from a high reality in regards to Luciferian embrace. Now, in that said, others of the Illuminati, or in whatever aspect you want to call it, will bring a sword out of their own megalomania, despite what people want to say, like this gentleman you spoke of. They're in a state of denial. If they don't accept the fact that they, in turn, are bringing a philosophy that could be very destructive. It could rout out humans. It could bring death and destruction down upon mankind. You have to realize that, and you have to accept it. And by the term is my own embrace against denial and against the manufactured reality that we live in. It's saying that this satanic nature will garner power. It also garners vast ability to destroy, because you are bringing into the fore, as an example of Nietzsche or any of them, and his Uberman seeking of the Superman aspect. When you're going there, you are going to be stepping on people. The masters, or whatever, the superior seeks to destroy the inferior. It's the demons that feast on the weak, and so on and so on. I don't seek to do that. I seek to only elevate my own consciousness to the superconsciousness, and to garner away from humanity as I see it from my own personage. Whether that is for a certain other individual, I have no idea. But I also acknowledge that those that have sought superconsciousness will rout out in a lot of ways, in a lot of insanity, as Nietzsche himself and others like him. And see, other Satanists are lying to themselves that they don't realize that one philosophy builds on another, and they've got to call a spade a spade. I just call a spade a spade. I seek my own Aryan reality. I want to be rich. I want to be powerful. And I've taken black magic to the fore, and to that level, and to the war, and to the sword. And does that mean that I am seeking the destruction of mankind? No. But many do, and they're not realizing it. They're not realizing they're Satanists themselves. They don't want to admit it. It is satanic to realize that I am coming away from this that I will no longer worship exterior of myself, that I am going within myself. It is very hard to bring yourself up. It is very hard to change yourself. It is very hard to unlearn things in our reality, in our sheeple reality that is constantly coming down upon us, in our overtaxed line of the gray force law that is ever bearing down upon us with new laws. And it's just liberation. I think my own satanic philosophy and Luciferian enlightenment seeks to be liberated. I don't want to be shackled. I don't want to be living in lies. And that's what's made me very rich and very powerful. Now, a lot of people, they're writing a lot of this self-help jargon. The jargon can be whatever you want to call it, but it goes against the grain of normal thinking, but they don't want to call it satanic. Is it humanism? Maybe. Is it masterism or whatever? Is it some kind of other philosophy? It can be anything.
Oh, heck, it could be egoism. I mean, we'll go. Talk. Ayn Rand wrote. I mean, all her books were totally about egoism and the power of man.
Yes, and you have to be well understood in that historic record. You know, where I'm taking it is that I'm saying, look, in my philosophy and Luciferian enlightenment, that mankind is inherently evil. One has to learn to accept this. Once that acceptance is taken on, and you look at this holy book or whatever, the Bible in itself, as the most bloodthirsty doctrine ever written, as its philosophical record, then we can begin even there. But there's many beginnings and endings to mankind's reality in its own desolation. And as we move into the future, we will see that even desolation is wrought on a greater scale because we are bringing in these elements and more ability to destroy ourselves. Mankind is a very masterful maker of its own desolation, and it comes in many forms. And as it evolves, it just will take on an exponential rate higher and higher to bring a more sophisticated, more powerful war. And the war will be wrought against itself, despite what people want to imagine, despite what people want to believe. Everything that has ever happened has happened right here on planet Earth. We have not gotten off this terrestrial space. We have, as an aspect of my own mental ability or others' mental abilities, through astral travel or through projection or remote influencing or remote viewing, I feel that I have gotten off this rock and been able to go out and be more enlightened throughout the universe. But the universe itself is even a cosmic reality that is reflected on us, and that is why I even say that mankind is inherently evil, and it goes throughout space and time, because even out in the universe, there are different alien realities, and these things travel through consciousness. They're not traveling great spans of time. And even out there, it is very dire and very dark. And why is that? It's because there is evil that is not just pervasive on this terrestrial space. It is throughout space and it's throughout time. But it's very heavy stuff, and, you know, it's not learned in a day.
717-298-7460 is your way to get on board the Edge of the Unknown with my guest this evening, Mr. Winter Laake. Check out his website. It is very simply winterlaake.com, Lake spelled L-A-A-K-E. You can see information for all of his stuff there. You can see his books. You can find them on Amazon.com. You can find them, but go there first. Again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, he's a very talented person. He is a screenwriter. He is an author. He is a practitioner of black magic. We've been talking about his experiences with Satanism and how it plays out in his life. And you just brought up something really good. And again, I'm trying to scratch down all these notes, as I always want to do. So when you're talking about everything happening on this planet, what about the paranormal experiences people have? Is that in itself something that you've experienced, whether it's astral projection, whether it's remote viewing? If someone is just walking down the street and has something fantastical happen that we could throw into the realm of the paranormal, are they experiencing the paranormal on the way that you do, or is that just a tease?
Oh, I'm sure everyone is experiencing. The supernatural is everywhere. You just have to look. It's supernatural to be alive. It's supernatural in our experience. However, the experience is being very conditioned. You have to be able to open your mind up to understand this phenomena as it happens throughout, the world and throughout ourselves. It's enormous. I've seen all kinds of different things. I experienced UFOs as a teenager. I was trying to beckon and call them. Now the Raelians are using cult-like reality on mountains to try to summon them as well. They can very much so be summoned, just like anything else, demons or powers or whatever you want to call them. They come through different rifts or reality. It's the nature of what black magic or the practitioner is. But you're using your own self as a fulcrum, and these other things are devices that can enhance that ability. Just like casting a spell from a tower is far better than being in a basement, or being in a wilderness area or a grotto to just harness the very essence of nature itself in order to get in that spell casting. But then it takes belief, and it does not require your belief in it to actually succeed if you are a non-believer, because if a believer is out, like myself, and he is using the forces around that can be done to spell disaster or doom for someone if a curse is cast. But yes, supernatural phenomena happens all the time. Grandma's ghost in the basement or, haunting the house, absolutely. These things are all around. I think as our, record has said, even from the 60s, if we're looking at things that used to be science fiction are becoming science fact every day. I'm sure it's going to be more explained as we've been able, with our devices or our technology, in order to come out of things. There was something around this ghost box recently that I was studying that a friend invented. I was perplexed by it. But he's this ardent hunter of the supernatural, and he goes into these places, and he's like a technician, and he's developed this thing that he can go around and picks up all these different devices. It sounds like something out of the film Hell House. Although I don't like the name of the film Hell House, I highly recommend it for any psychic researcher because it's really technologically advanced for its time. Although the film was made in the 70s, it really mirrored a good research project in dealing with devices and so on. But yeah, it happens to people every day. You can bring it into your life. You can traffic with it like anything else. You can. It's like a desire to go to a strip club or something. It's just that simple. But you have to put yourself into it. It's not just something where you're just throwing dice and saying this will occur. You have to really sort of believe it and then release it. And it's like with anything with spell casting, out of the 1,000 different diatribes that have been written on it, and it can be perfected and honed. And hence, that has always been my Faustian search as my own black magic evolves. And one black magic practitioner's masterhood of it doesn't mean that it's going to be your masterhood. You have to go on your own path and find out what works for you, by whatever name you want to call it. These people get so caught up in their ego, and they're saying, okay, I am this all-powerful, masterful black magic practitioner, whatever. Who cares? I hate that. I think that's ridiculous. Most people that I find that say that I am this satanic master or something, they're just a waste of time, and their ego is overcoming anything that they could actually accomplish. If you are saying you're this great master, but you're an army of one broke living in a rental that's like barely being paid for, one step from being evicted, that is not being a master of your reality. If and there are people that run corporations and run people down every day, but they won't admit that they're in a form of Satanism. That is absolute types of Satanism. It's not my type of Satanism because I don't seek to run people down. I think you have to be fair, and I think you have to be just in what you're doing. But if you're stepping on people, that's not good. That's not a way to go. That's a waste of time, just like sacrificing humans or animals. There are groups within Satanism that do that, and they are like going by high names and high collars. And that's completely not my form of it. I think that's a waste of time if you're hurting children, or if you're in prisons and you're, doing things to people, or if you're even out and, out in the regular public and you're injuring and destroying. That is not the way to go. But again, with that said, the very nature of it does endemically go that path. It does bring destruction, because I am not in denial of the fact that if you are doing what you want, just like this Aleister Crowley statement, which is endemically a contradiction, do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law. Right. Yes. It is impossible to do what you want without injuring someone. But that is the nature of the beast in our reality. It's what countries do. Our United States of America rolls over people every day. It is an impossibility to deny this fact. America, by its sheer nature of its Constitution and its New World Order, this new acceptus, which is written on a very dollar bill, it has been rolling over humans and countries since 1776. But that is satanic by its very nature, to come out with such a bold statement that's saying, we are coming, that this is the right, that we are always going this direction, and we are establishing a new world order. Through my Satanism as a philosophy, it is seeking to establish its own world order, but it's doing it's on its own essence. That I am saying that as an individual, you do no longer have to be downtrodden. You do not have to be broke. You do not have to be tired. You do not have to answer to anyone. That you can be a millionaire, that you can have a $70,000 car, and that you can drink $4 coffee, and you can relax, and you don't have to stress. You don't have to get old, and you don't have to have gray hair, or you have to listen to someone who is nagging you all the time. What you can do is you can really be self-help to the 10th power and accept who you are as a person, make whatever works work for you, and call it whatever you want. I call what I do satanic. I accept what I do. My nature in magic is black. It is a black magic power, because I am not sitting here in a white light lie saying that, okay, if I cast this spell, it is for altruistic means. That is a lie. If I am casting a spell, I am casting it for myself, and I am seeking to get my own highest and best Luciferian power out of it. Now, will people be hurt, injured by that? Probably, because that is the truth of it. In certain forms of other, whatever you want to call it, witchcraft, and I think witchcraft is beautiful, and I don't bash witchcraft. I'm just saying that there are those within witchcraft that seek to harm none and do what thou wilt. That in itself is a contradiction in terms, because you cannot do what you want without harming someone. It is just the nature of things. You would be living on pins and needles and sleeping on a bed of nails if you tried to live by that philosophy. Mm-hmm. It's just not, it's incursal, but it goes to mankind's own denial. It goes to mankind's, living in a guilted kind of reality and going along the tracks and saying that we're kicking the can down the road and all this, just like these idiot savant politicians that are taking all the shots in our name for us, whatever they're doing, and they're totally living in this false paper money kind of thing and so on. Even they themselves are mostly satanic by their very nature of their rulership over us. And it actually, even democracy, and I don't even rail against democracy. I like freedom, and back to what I said earlier about being liberated and seeking Luciferian liberation. Democracy, by its very Latin term, is to be ruled by demons. Demonocracy was always something from that premise. It has been very concealed in our reality that we have not accepted this by this point, but we are being ruled by demons, and it is imperative that we ourselves seek our own demonhood.
My guest here, absolutely. My guest here on the Edge of the Unknown, Mr. Winter Laake. If you want to get on board, give us a yell, 717-298-7460. Shoot me an email, theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. We've got some emails coming in. We've also got a question through our live chat room. If you are on the live chat room, at allonebroadcast.com. Just click on the little button up there that says live chat room. You can shoot me a question, but please do it in a personal message because there's so much activity that happens in there. I lose track of things. I can't do all of this stuff because I am my own chief cook and bottle washer as we run along here on the edge of the unknown. A quick question. And this one comes from Julie. She asks, what does the guest mean when he states you don't have to get old?
Well, in the future, in looking at technology and also looking at how people are living today, I'll give you an example. I see people that are worn out, they're tired, they're just in a very bad space within their own mind. In an aspect of Satanism, of black magic, or whatever you want to call it, I seek to overcome that. So, I do things that I want to do and choices that I want to make. And I think if you take out this whole aspect of answering to someone, or if you're your own force of Aryan power and you can have the ability to rise above the conditioning and getting money and getting that power through my own manifestation. Now, that is for myself to know, and you can research or read my books. They're probably not going to help you because you have to come from that area of black magic to say, okay, I'm going to cast this spell. I'm going to conjure these elements. I am going to have steadfast belief in these forces, and I can overcome it. I went to the doctor the other day, and he dates me down very young. Now, so on and so on. So I don't look my age. I am actually an antique. Neither here nor there. It's about that. It's about overcoming that. Now, Scientology seeks to do that, and a lot of these other types, but that's more Satanology to be anything to be said because they're manipulating people and they're doing things and taking people's money and so on. I don't seek to do that. I do give readings and I give real advice that make people money, or I lift curses off of them, or I cast curses in their name against people, as I don't believe in karma. If karma existed, we would have been, as a humanity, wiped out long time ago. The aspect of not getting old is very serious as we get into about 2017, 2018, because we're going to be getting more singular with our machines. There are altruists or supposed altruists like Kurzweil and so on that are really pouring $1 billion into the research of singularity. That means that the phone in your hand will be soon streaming in your blood. When this occurs, this nanocellular technology will be able to re-circuit your whole individual nature as a human, and you will be able to cleanse yourself, and the technology will regulate you. You will be able to have life extension. And through the embrace of this, and obviously through the help of black magic, it even takes it further. Now, I call this singularity a satanic singularity, because I accept it as, hey, we are really seeking to break from our humanity as we know it now, and we are going to become like some kind of superhuman creature, which is inevitable. There is a reason for that. That is an evolution in our technology as what we have created surpasses us. The creator becomes, overcome by what it is created, and so on and so on. As we have created these machines that surpass us, then we shall be overcome as well. So in that aspect of life extension, it is very real. You do not have to get old. And, obviously, as I've said, through black magic as it stands today in 2014, it's kept me in a very good kind of a stasis space where you can really overcome a lot of the anxiety, guilt, and self-destructive nature that man has, and it slows that aging process. And there's even spells and stuff that can do it too, but that's very simplistic. But in the future, it gets very technological, and it's a short-run future. It's not going to be, 50 years from now. I used to think it was, but my time frame has shifted. The mapping of the brain that is going on, the technology that's being poured into that by the founder of PayPal and so on, aligned with other Illuminati people, they're really working on this. However, as I said, they each have their own intention. They're coming off as their altruists. They're to honest, they're not. Just like Kako, who's a doctor and he's a physicist and he's brilliant, but he's not really an altruist. His parents were incarcerated in some kind of concentration camp. He had some kind of issue. His true nature will come out later. Just like with Kurzweil, his real intention is to resurrect his dead father through DNA regeneration, and this is going to be very likely to happen soon as well. So all these individuals that are really illuminists, and I've sold them to their face, and they know how I feel, and we're not enemies. I'm not an enemy of these individuals at all. I don't really have enemies. I have no time for enemies, and I don't have time to bash things in that regard, because I am progressing in my philosophy as it stands going forward. Is it self-worship? Yes. Is it come from a point of acceptance? Yes. But I also know and accept things from the exterior. But life extension is very, very real, and it's coming in our technology as we evolve. Not everyone will get it, and this is where it goes even darker for our humanity, because even in first generation or second generation of this satanic singularity as it comes about, there may be failures or some kind of thing with it. So, it's one thing to say that, hey, the first generation might be bad, so wait for the second generation. However, there's even a theory on my part that says, well, if there's a first generation that works, there may not be a second generation, because it would be like these things, superhuman, whatever they are, will deem themselves superior, and everything that is unaccepting of it will be deemed inferior.
Let's do this. You're listening to The Edge of the Unknown here on the All One Broadcast Radio Network. You're listening to Mr. Winter Laake. I want you to check out his website, winterlaake.com. That's Laake. You can check out all kinds of information about him. As I said, he's a very talented guy. Some of his books, The Satanic Paradigm is one that I would like to delve into a little bit more as we continue on the show. And as I mentioned, let's take a quick break here. When we get back, I want to talk a little bit about the popularity of Satanism and how it became a little bit more mainstream, and maybe it's just not mainstream. Maybe I am under the impression that it has been because, you know what? I grew up in suburbia. I didn't always have that. All I heard was all the terrible things that were going on with Satanism, and quite frankly, maybe I was a little bit off. Maybe everyone who was talking about it was a little bit off. You want to get on board? Give me a yell. 717-298-7460. The Edge of the Unknown at gmail.com. We're back right after this. Much more coming up, taking you up until 10 o'clock here on The Edge of the Unknown with Winter Laake.
Looking for the best in vintage clothing? Look no further than Vintage Wears Boutique at vintagewearsboutique.com. Women's classic jackets and coats, skirts and dresses, all just a click away. Check out the latest inventory online for pictures, sizing, and more. Have a particular item in mind you can't find anywhere else? Go to vintagewearsboutique.com. Still stumped? Try their personal shopper service and let them do the work. Find the best in vintage clothing at vintagewearsboutique.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us at vintagewears_ on Twitter, and see us on Pinterest and Tumblr. vintagewearsboutique.com, where the past is your style.
Hey there, A1B listeners. This is Medium Julie MacDonald, host of Medium at Large. Join me Wednesday nights on All One Broadcast, where together with my guests, we journey into the many different worlds and expressions of spirit. Through mediumship, astrology, nature, indigenous technologies, alternate universes, otherworldly messengers, and much, much more. You just never know where we're going to land. So strap your seatbelts and tune in to Medium at Large on A1B. Listen, it's the only place to be.
For those interested in delving deep into the paranormal, why not look into the Paratech store? Located at paratechstore.com, browsers will find the latest in investigative equipment, books, and more. Items go beyond technical equipment. Mojo bags, stone sets, and other curiosities await your exploration at the Paratech Store. paratechstore.com. Visit them today.
Without chupacabras, there's nothing to talk about. Back to the edge of the unknown.
Well, as I run that liner every once and again, that is totally not true. There's plenty to talk about without chupacabras, as much as I love talking about chupacabras. I actually had a little offline conversation with a buddy of mine who has written a book, who's been on the show. He's going to be back on the show. We're not going to be talking about chupacabras, but I had to bring it up to him today, and he's like, why do you always talk about chupacabras? Because they're fun. That's why. Anyway, see, even Winter agrees with me. Chupacabras, it's cool. My guest here this evening on the edge of the unknown, whether you're kicking your week off or wrapping it up, is Mr. Winter Laake. Check out his website, winterlaake.com, Laake. We've been talking a lot about his background, his thoughts on Satanism, the practice of black magic. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got a question for him, we've got our phone lines open, 717-298-7460. That's 717-298-7460. The Edge of the Unknown at gmail.com is your way to send me an email. We've got some emails to get to. We're always getting a backlog, which is pretty typical of the show for anybody who listens every week. You can always find me on Facebook, Edge of the Unknown Radio Show. Also, check out A1B, the All One Broadcast Facebook page. And if you are listening live on the allonebroadcast.com player, click on the button that says Live Chat Room. You can shoot me a personal message through there, as has already been done this evening. And we're going to get right back into the discussion as I take you up until 10 o'clock this evening. So, as I mentioned before the break, there seemed to be a rise in popularity, and I think this is where a lot of the misconceptions came from. And I was a child of the 80s. I grew up in I was born in the early 70s, grew up in the 80s, and there was a lot of this really crazy stuff going on about satanic this, and your kids, if he listens to Slayer, he's nuts, and if he does this, and God, you can't have Black Sabbath in the house, and all this stuff. I remember my friend Dan, I'm not going to use his last name, but he would know, if he's listening, he knows exactly what I'm talking about. He brought in a paperback copy of the Satanic Bible. He brought it into school, and everybody went crazy. Now, no one had read it. I'm sure Dan hadn't read it. I'm sure none of the teachers at school had read it, had any idea who Anton LaVey was, but there it was. Written in, I believe, was it 69? I mean, obviously, Winter will know this. This is really when the popularity and the misconception of what Satanism is all about really stem from, unless I'm wrong.
Absolutely. And a lot of people are in denial of the modern record of Anton LaVey and what he accomplished and what he's still continuing to accomplish in the grave. There are a lot of Satanists that bash him. Again, that comes from some kind of Prometheus aspect where they want to step out and say that I was the progenitor or creator. They don't want to see things for what they are. I myself arrived at Anton LaVey. I was already a practitioner of black magic, and then later found that there were different groups, his and the Church of Satan being in the modern times very much philosophically aligned, but where I diverge from it is that I feel that there is an exterior force of darkness, and they were very much self-worshippers, being atheists. But Anton LaVey, yes, when he had that ability to get his book published, the Satanic Bible, and there's a lot of intrigue about that because, it came out later. It might have been in some disinformation, or his wife actually read it or wrote it or edited it or something. And there's all of that stuff to me is all really arbitrary and not really necessary. It's nonsense. Anton LaVey was able to at least put his name on something and get something out there that began a whole kind of different aspect of our thinking. In 1966, he established his Satanic group. It was the first in our modern record, despite what many think. However, there's been others, Hellfire Clubs and other things that were predated that, and Aleister Crowley's work and so on, who I believe was a Satanist as well, even though a lot of the different other occult groups would deny that. So Anton LaVey, being that said, is not a total sole individual of this Satanic movement, but he is one that really made it more accepted in our society. Avon Books published his book. They sold millions of copies throughout the country. It brought a big influence into our society and into our world. He was really kind of groundbreaking in that. And then he embraced, obviously, the whole showman thing and all the intrigues that go on around Anton LaVey, whether his name is real or whether his house was real or any of these things, as far as like all of this, stuff that was around him is really not really about what black magic is. I'm looking at the core central aspect of that. When his book got introduced into the world through the printing, through Avon Books, and then the Satanic Rituals and after, and then his influence, it took about 30 years to really, or maybe about 20 years to gain steam. When it got into the 80s, it did create a satanic panic because people were really starting to break from their regular Christian conditioning at that time. 1988 was a very crucial year in our record because we're from a satanic aspect, because it was the time when the churches were really thrown down and Satan as an aspect or as a being was installed as a leader of our world, as we kind of came to that acceptance that we do live in a demonocracy and so on and so on. So the 80s were a very critical time. And actually, despite what people want to say, there is horrid things done in Satanism aspect's name. There's been a lot of animal and children hurt and a lot of things that have gone on. But that isn't the Satanism that I adhere to.
Right.
But again, other Satanists deny this. There are horrible things that occur in it. And other people, have spent a great majority of their time fighting, that whole idea. But to be honest, like these Dahmers, these types, these killers and so on, most of them are more satanic than anything, and they adhere to a lot of the ideology because they're like, well, I can kill whoever I want or I can do whatever I want. There is very much so an evil in that. And as I said earlier, there's different aspects of that evil. But Anton LaVey laid down a groundwork in our modern record that really took hold by the 80s. And then there was some work undertaken later, and then he died, obviously, in 97. However, with that being said as well, he wasn't the sole, progenitor of that. But I give him his credence, whereas a lot of people don't. Now it just seems to be like, slamming this guy or whatever. And whatever, I can understand whatever they're coming from. But I just look at philosophy and the philosophic record of Satanism, and he is a pillar of that. Other groups, they really down on him, and I can understand that. It's something they do. They want to step out of the shadow, or they feel they're in a shadow. I can tell you, I was never in Anton LaVey's shadow. I was never in really anyone's shadow. I'm in my own shadow. I don't even have to address it. But I do accept, or not accept, but I understand that he was a part of that record, and and he brought it in the paper, and he was doing, all these different things, and he was celebritizing it. In that celebritizing it, it made it more popular. Now here we are in 2014, and it is becoming extremely mainstream. People are looking and embracing this satanic aspect more and more. They're seeing it for what it is. They're like, I don't have to live in denial. I don't have to live in guilt. I can embrace this power. I can try to cast these spells to better myself. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't work. It doesn't matter if it's self-deception. If if I'm standing in a chamber and I'm conjuring, and maybe it is all self-deception, but, mankind lives in self-deception anyway. If you're saying, I'm going to cast a spell and I want to manifest this expensive car, you do have to take some action with that. And combined with that, you're gearing your own mental state to get into the position to be able to handle that. It's kind of like being able to run your own television show or run your own film or whatever. You have to be in a certain state of mind. Whatever it is that's working works for me in that aspect. And that's what I think people are starting to come to see, and they're practicing more and more. And, I see it more and more in society. And it doesn't matter what name you want to call it. And right away, I can understand why people attack it. It's a very dark thing. Satanism is not for everyone. And if they need to call it humanism or if they need to call it something else but still practice Satanism, they can. Whatever works for you.
Well, I think people get scared, and rightfully so, with what you're saying is that there's a lot of different ways you can go, and there's a lot of different ways you can go in life in general, where, what you're talking about is, a life plan, and this is what I want, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to focus on. When people do hear about, and obviously you're confirming that there are some folks who go into a different direction where it is much more destructive, it is much more just a little bit off the beaten path where people are getting hurt or that sort of thing, then obviously people are going to be frightened by that and say, well, holy crap, I want to better myself and I want a better job and I want to get a new car, but I don't want to kill people. And I think there's that stigma that exists.
That's what happened.
Right.
That's what happened.
And how does a person like you distinguish between the ability to do what you're doing and then also look at the other folks and say, you know what, that's really not for me. That's really not the direction I want to go.
Well, it's very random. It's very random. If I cast a spell on someone, if I put a curse on someone, that's destruction bringing. I'm not a saint. I accept that, and I've done it in order to get things and to move forward. That's very dark and that's very hard to people to realize. And but other people that are in this, some of it, they wouldn't admit that. They're too frightened of it, or they wouldn't, be honest with themselves. And anyone who's casting a curse, whether it's in voodoo or whatever, they're bringing death and destruction. Just like the famous curse that Anton LaVey put out on the lover of one of his lovers, Jane Mansfield. Well, she ended up getting tangled up in that, and she died in that car crash where the curse manifested as well. So there's a lot of different slippery, double-edged swords with this work. And, you can slide kind of all over the scale on this thing. There was a guy who I was speaking with the other week, and he's like, we're going to build an army in the future, and he keeps having these visions, and he's focusing on this army, and I tell you, I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to be a shepherd, because I know where that goes. Because if you're going to do an America in the future or have some kind of global control thing, that just doesn't interest me. Mankind is overpopulating itself, and it will fall on its own sword. By the sheer weight of its nature, when you can't go down the street and get food out of the grocery store, and everything begins to grind to a halt because we're fracking our world apart to scrape the bottom of the barrel, and we're running out of resources because we're just like rats devouring the globe. Satanism might be able to get you through that, as I said earlier, to manifest and survive. But my survival in that may not be your survival. Somebody may not want to experience that, DNA regeneration goes wrong, then all of a sudden we have all these creatures, or we have zombies, or whatever you want to call them. That's an inevitability. These things are very dark, and the future shifts all the time. And I think people that are into Satanism or into black magic, and they're saying, just like the white witches, they're like, harm none, do what thou wilt, that just not hold water. It's not going to be anything real. It's a lie. And, that's where you get your Hitler. That's, a lot of that comes out of that denial.
You know, I got to ask you, and again, my guest this evening here on the Edge of the Unknown, Mr. Winter Laake, outside of the fact that I had no idea that Anton LaVey dated Jane Mansfield, which is good for him.
Right.
Holy cats, good. Yeah, all right. My wife's hot, but that's okay. Anyway, all right. I digress. I'm going to smooth that right over. But it's interesting what you just brought up about because you've been talking about, you know, wanting to be not necessarily powerful, but, you know, in want of being financially secure and being as successful as you can be. But at the same time, if you get too successful, doesn't that thereby take away from other people who are scraping at the bottom of the barrel? How does that all work? How does that all work at the end of the day?
People are getting stepped on all the time. I mean, that's the Illuminati. That's the whole agenda. That's the campaign. That's the mandate for democracy. Highest and best. And yeah, I mean, people get stepped on. And I've stepped on people. It's just the nature of things. And that's how we're made. And
but so you're honest about it. I mean, you just said, I've stepped on people, and a lot of people...
I've gotten in corporations just to wreck them, or I've built corporations. I mean, I have people that won't make moves without me. I mean, they have millions and millions of dollars, you know. I'm very content. I mean, you know, things are very much moving in a good direction in my life currently, and I want to keep it there. And I'm just being honest. I mean, people that are in corporate reality, you know, the corporate vampire system, they know for a fact that people get stepped on. You step on somebody when you look at your numbers and on the roster and Christmas is coming and you're like, you know what, I don't want to pay these people, fire 1,000 of them. You know, that's happens, you know, and then they're out of work, struggling, broke, run out of money, and then the horrible things that happen to those people. You know, that's the nature of the beast. And democracy kills, you know, and communism kills. All of these different things. You have to keep yourself at high strength in this society. If you don't, you're going to just be a derelict, and then you just get kicked. That's the last place you want to be. You know, I was on a train platform here in Chicago the other day, and I saw these two guys throw another guy on the third rail. Wow. You know, I mean, and then I was walking down the street the other day, and I saw a guy in a mask shoot 4 people in a car. So these random acts of violence are a part of it as well. It's very much evil, and that's the human nature of things. It's about unleashing the beast within. And that is what's really under threat for human society as well, that we're constantly holding in all of these things, and that's going to happen. You know, in the future, we're going to hunt each other for food if things don't change. I probably won't be doing any of that. I don't really want to be in a world that's like that. But when you're hitting a wall, and as we run out of everything, and as we run out of our gas, and we don't have our food, and all this kind of crazy stuff that's going on, when all that runs out and you have 14 billion people on the planet, there's going to be a huge Holocaust. And it's going to be real, and it's going to be Satan, and it's going to be the power of darkness made manifest. But after that purge, there may be something that will become higher from that, but it'd be a more elevated evil.
Let's grab an email here on the Edge of the Unknown. If you're interested in shooting me a message, we've got a couple here. We got a little backlog. theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com, and all these questions are for myself or Mr. Winter Laake, who is my guest this evening. This comes from Chris and Oleanne, who says, "Love your show, man." Well, I appreciate that, Chris. And this is for Winter. Why do you think more Satanists don't evangelize, if that's the right word, to get more people to be a part of any following? Don't know about you, but I get harassed by every religion under the sun on a monthly basis. Chris, thanks for being on the Edge. I appreciate it. And that question is right for my guest, Mr. Winter Laake.
I think that the aspect of evangelizing, again, is not a part of Satanism. Satanism arrives in someone's life. It usually comes out of atheism, an aspect of no acceptance of God, and then really internalizing and analyzing yourself as your own Aryan. And I use the word Aryan as the predated time, going about 200 years or so, with Madame Blavatsky's aspects of seeking an Atlantean Aryan reality. not the bastardization of the term and the occult reality that the Nazis tried to use. And then they, of course, exterminated all those people. That is no interest of me when I use the word Aryan. But it is something that, typically, again, arrives. They generally, like myself, yes, I speak about the philosophy because I want to make people aware of the philosophy of Satanism and Luciferianism. Am I trying to bring people to the fold? No, I am not. I am not looking to create an organization or a church or anything like that. I am just, expressing my own philosophy as it is unfolding here in our current reality, as any philosopher does. That obviously stems from doubt, and then from doubt you go into logic, and then from logic, and then you climb all these different evolutions and stairs, and that's how I've just arrived at the Satanic black magic philosophy. But again, it's something that doesn't really even need to be evangelized. It's looked at like, typically what I've seen in society is, I'm tired of doing this. This is not working for me. I need to find something else. It is self-help or whatever, whatever you want to call it, then it would be Satanism for me. It would be black magic. So that's why you're not going to really hear anybody knocking on your door. It's something you're going to go and have to come to or arrive at.
I've got a question from our our live chat room here, and I'm going to actually scroll up 1 second here. Actually, it's a comment, but I thought this was actually telling because it was what you were just talking about. Kathy just wrote something that says, I'm sure there are ways to achieve what you want without hurting. See, this is why I asked that you guys send them to me in a personal message, because that's exactly what I have to scroll back.
Right.
I'm sure there are ways to achieve what you want without hurting other people in the process.
Yeah, it's very hard to do. I mean, especially with 7 billion people on the planet. I mean, what I want, people get stepped on.
No, well, she actually just actually cleared it up and said she understands what you mean, but there is a difference between doing it deliberately and then that other comment. I hate the live chat room. I don't want to do the live chat room anymore, anybody. You guys are a pain in the... But I guess, is there a difference between doing it deliberately and understanding that, sure, survival of the fittest, somebody is going to be stronger, somebody is going to be faster, they are going to get to the top higher or whatever, but, I guess what she's asking, and maybe I'm putting words in her mouth, is there something wrong about going out of your way to screw somebody to get to that point?
I mean, not really, because that's just the nature of things. If you see in our society, if we see weakness, we kind of, endemically go after it. It's horrible, especially as, I don't take kindness or weakness. I don't really go out of my way to go and hurt people to get what I want, if it can be avoided. And I really don't want all that much. I mean, all my want is just to make sure my bills are paid and, stuff like that, and move forward in reality. I'm not looking to want to do certain things that these others want to do, like Kurzweil and so on, that are bringing about the singularity. I'm seeing that. I mean, that is a huge thing. That is where you're going to manifest change within humanity on a great grand scale. He's on that mission. That is why I call it satanic, because it will, eventually goes into the survival of the fittest aspect of the 10th power. That's an inevitability, though. Whether it was Kurzweil or anyone else, it's an exponential scale of up-climbing in our technology as we move forward in our record. But, yeah, it's pretty hard to move forward or get what you want without hurting someone along the line. I mean, just to give you an example, all of the entire consumerism in America is supported on Chinese slave labor. Those people are cramped into small quarters, 10,000 of them in a room, where they have these horrid conditions, and they're just ironing out everything that we use here. We turn a blind eye to it. We don't realize that everything we buy here in the United States is made in China. Why is that? Because we are using Chinese slave labor in order to make that happen. So someone everywhere all the time is getting stepped on. You might as well admit it. You know, someone over there is getting their hands crushed, or they're jumping out windows to try to kill themselves because their lives are horrible. You know, that is what's going on. America needs to wake up and realize what it is. You know, it is the great Satan. We are all Satan. Satan is the way and the light. It is the truth. It is the darkness that spans throughout space and time. It is our reality. And we might as well fess up that we live under a demonocracy ruled by demons and people that are dictating to us what we should do. And until we are truly liberated and can self-govern, this is where it's going to stay. We are in these conditions. And I've just adapted to it through black magic power in order to rise above it and dictate my terms.
So when we talk a little bit about black magic versus what other people would say is white magic, what's the difference between the two? Because I think the layperson would just hear that and say, well, white magic is positive and it's good. Black magic is bad. It's based on greed. It's based on this. It's based on, evil. What's the difference between the two?
There is no difference. One is in denial. White magic is just denial. It's when you're going casting a love spell and you're saying, well, I want to love this person, or this person needs to love me, and it's going to be altruistic and everything is good. Well, that is changing the course of a person, okay? And, that is altering things. That is not white. If you are doing that, it's manipulation, it's Satanism, it's black magic. There is no such thing as white magic. People are, saying, some people that I know stream from some kind of light giver, light bringer, something. They stream from this consciousness, and they want to heal people, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. That is fine. If they feel that they're using Reiki or some kind of forms of other existential reality in order to do this healing and things, they're still getting off on it. There is a reason why they're doing it. Even that in itself is a black magic thing, because there is some kind of enjoyment that they're getting out of it. But, the black and white thing is very arbitrary. One man's good is another man's evil. That argument has been the dynamic of humans since the beginning of time. To tell an Arab that this small child in Pakistan tore up this Quran, and then they grab this child and they pour acid on her face, and then call her a witch, and then realize the whole thing was all a lie anyway, made up by some guy who just wanted to maim a child. This kind of behavior is crazy. To us in our Western reality, we would want to go cut that guy's head off. But, this is the whole weird trip that we're on. Humans are just this vile creatures, and they just need to be kind of reined in from time to time. Unfortunately, we're going to rein ourselves in very soon here through a cataclysm.
Winter Lake, my guest here this evening on The Edge of the Unknown. Check out his website, winterlake.com, L-A-A-K-E. He is the author of The Satanic Paradigm, which we actually haven't even talked about any of your books, but you can find all that information at his website of all the things that he is involved with. He has written a number of different books. He's won awards for some of his prose and poetry, as I mentioned before. And we'll talk a little bit about his books. We're going to take a fast break here. There's been a number of comments from our live chat room at all1broadcast.com. If you're checking that out and you want to get involved there, you can see some of that. And we're going to talk about those comments. I've got more emails. We want to hear from you as well. If you want to give us a ring-a-ding-ding on the old phone there, 717-298-7460. It has been a very quiet night on the phones, which, hey, happens from time to time. What are you going to do? But if you want to get on with Winter Lake, we've got plenty more time for you to get on board. Taking a fast break here. We'll be back right after this. Couple of messages to pay the bills. And, hey, want to remind everybody, next week, Ron Bowles and Jim Sherman from the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization will be my guests. Hey, I haven't even asked Winter about Bigfoot, but maybe we will
Yeah,
when we get back.
You think Bigfoot is real? I don't know. I mean, I was talking about the Loch Ness Monster the other day.
So, hey, we might do that when we get back. Everybody, stick around. Would love to hear from you. Again, 717-298-7460, theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. Thanks for hanging out with me late on a Sunday evening. My name is Mark. This is The Edge of the Unknown. Back with Winter Lake in just a second. Mark Henry here for the cool cats at Natural Vapors, with 2 locations in Western New York and online at naturalvaporsbuffalo.com. Natural Vapors offers a variety of e-cigarettes and accessories for those making the jump from analog smokes. Whether you're new to vaping or you're a seasoned user, Natural Vapors has what you're looking for. First-time vaping? Visit with their dedicated staff and they'll set you up with a starter kit that is customized for you. For the experienced vapors, they carry the latest smooth batteries and tanks by Kanger. And if you're looking for mods, they've got Innokin mods, custom wraps, and much, much more. Natural Vapors offers dozens of e-liquids to fit your flavor fancy, as well as wholesale e-liquids. And hey, all liquids are made in-house from USA FDA-approved ingredients. Don't take my word for it. Check them out yourself. 2 locations in Western New York, Southgate Plaza in West Seneca, and also in the Union Consumer Square Plaza in Cheektowaga. Not from around here or just don't want to leave the house? Order online at naturalvaporsbuffalo.com and have everything delivered right to your door wherever you are. That's Natural Vapors and naturalvaporsbuffalo.com. Tell them Mark Henry sent you.
Hey everybody, this is Medium Julie MacDonald for All One Broadcast, the best station for paranormal and all things spirit. At A1B, there are no canned, pre-recorded shows. Join us and interact with our hosts in our live chat room. Ask questions. Get answers. All fresh, all live, all the time. Join us at A1B, the only place to be.
Looking for the best in vintage clothing? Look no further than Vintage Wears Boutique at vintagewearsboutique.com. Women's classic jackets and coats, skirts and dresses, all just a click away. Check out the latest inventory online for pictures, sizing, and more. Have a particular item in mind you can't find anywhere else? Go to vintagewearsboutique.com. Still stumped? Try their personal shopper service and let them do the work. Find the best in vintage clothing at vintagewearsboutique.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us at vintagewears_ on Twitter, and see us on Pinterest and Tumblr. vintagewearsboutique.com, where the past is your style.
Never met a Yeti he didn't like. It's Mark Henry on the Edge of the Unknown.
Hey, welcome back to the Edge of the Unknown. As the big voice guy just said, this is the Edge of the Unknown with myself, Mark Henry. Holy cats, I'm not here by myself. I'm here with you on a Sunday evening. I've also got my guest live on the line, Mr. Winter Lake, 717-298-7460, your way to get on board, theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. And it was funny, I just was in the break and talked to Winter, because we have that ability here in Radio Land to have a conversation off the air. And, you know, I always told everybody, no matter where I was, whether it was in sports radio, whether it was in news radio, at any of the stations I've worked at, the best part of the show is always what goes on off the air. And not that we've had like lots of laughs and all kinds of goofy stuff, but the truth is I just told him, I said, boy, you know what, I've got a lot of people I think that are kind of angry right now. And it has nothing to do with anybody who's here, but I've got a bunch of angry emails that I'm going to get to. So we can talk about those, again, with my guest, Winter Laake. Check out his website, winterlaake.com, Laake. We're talking about Satanism. We're talking about the practice of black magic. And actually, one thing that I do want to touch on, because one of the things that came up in the chat room was, as I mentioned, the difference between white magic and black magic. So I'm scrolling up to get to that before we get to NT or anything else here. Okay, hang on one second. They actually say white magic doesn't do that either. And these are a whole bunch of thoughts, but I want to get these out there. They don't cast love spells. White magic is healing, herbal, and intention magic. No messing with the free will of anyone. How would you respond to that?
No, it's messing with the free will of whoever. I mean, whatever will is. I mean, you're influencing another person, so you're manipulating. You can't live the lie. I mean, even if you're healing, you're manipulating. It's projecting your own incursal power upon another. There is no white magic with that. That is influencing. Or you would just leave it alone. Whatever you're doing, it comes down to the crux of manipulation. Black magic just calls a spade a spade. If I'm seeking to do this, if I want to move these things around, or if I want to do this, it's causing a movement, and it's manipulation, and it's, black in orientation. Then it goes, so there's a whole list that, that goes around, whether it's love or, whether it's casting a curse or removing a curse. It's just how I view it. I mean, it's not for everybody, and, I can understand why people would get agitated at that,
I mean, I got to be honest with you. I have some people who I consider very close friends, and I mean, and these aren't even people that I actually have had dinner with, but people that I talk to and am very intimate with a lot of stuff when it comes to the paranormal, who have talked to me about this sort of thing, and it's such a weird place for me to be when I have to admit that, they are very powerful people. Whether or not I can say, yes, it was a spell, yes, it was this, yes, it was that, they're still very persuasive folks. They're still very, very smart people that should, they do demand and should be paid attention to.
Right. I can understand, and that's bringing influence, and that's manipulation. Whether it's the use of the words or the type of incantation or whatever it is. I mean, and I'm not slamming them. I mean, my personal belief is that there is no white magic, that everything is black, and that we are inherently evil, that we are driven by our own desires, and that comes in every aspect of our reality. It's just we're the animal beasts of the field, and our intentions are always skewed, and they're weird, and they're very diametrical. They go in all different directions as a chaos sphere or something, but it's still our inherent nature. And if people are doing whatever they want to say is good or whatever, it's still in forms of color, whether it's dark or gray or whatever. But one man's good is another man's evil, and there's a big spectrum to that, and that's been a struggle for mankind since its beginning.
So I got a question here for you, and this is just something that I've written down again in my notes as the night has progressed, because we do talk a lot about paranormal experiences, and I had a question earlier about that, and folks who have things that happen in their house that they think are ghosts, or they, maybe they are, I don't know. I mean, I haven't been there, and that's not for me to judge, but I think it's interesting to think about this, where number one, is the paranormal inherently evil or good or neither when it comes to ghostly visits, paranormal activity, whether it's a poltergeist or anything like that? Because a lot of times, especially in the movies, which I know soup everything up, but a lot of paranormal investigators will always say it is demonic behavior. It is something that is here to hurt you. It is here to destroy your family. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a huge spectrum. Hauntings, or the existence of spirits that are living on in their whole personality in the afterlife, or whatever that is, whether we call it afterlife, it could be veils of reality that we don't see. And I think our experimentations, not ours, but experimentations with DMT are opening up those veils to be seen even more. Because if you ever want to see real ghost activities going on in a haunted house on DMT, but neither here nor there. DMT, I'm talking as a reference to this new drug that's being used and worked on through the government, and they're able to, it manipulates your entire reality. It's not just an LSD trip. It transforms things, and you're able to quantify your mind, and it brings you down to a certain level where you're able to peer in the veils of existence and so on. This is no joke. It's very real. But paranormal activity, whether it's all demonic, probably not. I mean, you've got different people with different agendas, or creatures, or aliens, or something coming through from another place, obviously. Because if it's not in our four-dimensional reality in our house, with our solid walls and our solid door, then it is something else. That being said, that supernatural element could be whatever it wants to be. You would have to be there at that specific time. There was this house over here where, well, I won't even talk about this house. I'll talk about the woods, okay? There's a woods over in this area called Bachelor's Grove where this man, hung all these people and burned the house down in this cemetery in the middle of the woods and all this. It's haunted like crazy. The woods is Satan's church. I mean, this guy was evil in life, and he brought his evil in death. And he haunts these woods. People vanish there all the time. They dump bodies there. It's been going on for 100 years, and it's just evil. Now, that's just one man's intention. It'd be like an evil force that exists on into the afterlife, or whatever we want to call it, or exists on, period. Now, if you were just grandma that can't let go, then that force necessarily is not evil to that tilt, but her activities of jealousy or something might take place where you're being tripped or you're having things smashed or so on and so on. Not necessarily a demonic force that's trying to bring utter destruction, but it's working on a different level. So there's all kinds of parameters to this thing. I mean, I love all that stuff. I've researched it. I've gone all over the world. I've been to Karnak four times, I've seen a lot of different amazing things. I go looking for it. I traffic with it. I summon it, So it's just something that I see, and it all comes in different shapes and forms, But typically, if you're evil in life, the force is going to be evil in death, whatever you want to call it, and it's just in different varying levels, just like the Bell Witch. The Bell Witch in Tennessee, this witch, her grave was disturbed, and then she came back in this ghostly form, and it was experienced by the President of the United States at the time, and all of these things. People were dying, the family was wasting away, and just evil. And, was she justified because her bones were disturbed? Probably not. Was it even her? Who even knows? I mean, it's just so relative, until you walk on the water and until you actually see and experience something, you're going to be, sort of in denial.
Winter Lake, my guest, I'm only laughing because I just got an email in to the Edge of the Unknown. And folks, look, if you're not familiar with my show, I'm going to explain this to you one more time. Since I've made the switch from WECK over here to the All One Broadcast Radio Network, which are terrific people and just a terrific guy who runs the show here, Mr. Craig Eugene. I guess, look, if you're not familiar with the fact that I have a open-minded show where we talk about a lot of different things and we have a lot of different opinions, this is probably not the show for you, and you should do something else on Sunday night. And I'm laughing and saying that I've gotten some crappy emails, and actually some of them came over the weekend. I've got one right here that I'm going to read, which is anonymous, and that's fine. F you. So we should just look out for ourselves and F everyone else. You keep talking about the world falling into destruction, but you only give an S about yourself and nothing else matters. You suck, and F you for having this guy on your
There you go.
show.
Well, I mean, then why do we buy everything in China? Why do we allow our politicians to run over us? Why are we engaged in this nonsense? And until that stops, you might as well admit it. I mean, it's not a matter of whether it's all me and going up against everything. We're all ourselves going up against everything. You know, everything is being manufactured in blood. Our greatest, export in this country is weapons and militarized expediency, and we're getting more masterful at the development of our weapons. Why is that? Because we are the new Roman Empire. We are the empire of the vampire. We bring death and destruction. We might as well admit it. Are we altruists? No, we're not. If we were altruists, we'd be crying tears to go save the Chinese people from their enslavement. We don't care. Our politicians don't care about us. We are being sold out every day. All I'm saying is that you must seek your own empowerment to rise above the doldrums of your existence, or you will just be a sheep led to the slaughter.
I got another email here. This one comes from, hang on one second, I'm going to scroll up here. This comes from Tina. Says, I find the show intriguing. Okay, so there's obviously a dissenting opinion there. Does Winter believe in ghosts? Does he believe that there are people from the beyond trying to reach us with messages? Love the show. Thank you very much. Tina, appreciate you being on the edge.
I definitely think that ghosts are real, but it goes to whatever definition a ghost is. It can be pretty much anything. If you have an infinite amount of space, you have an infinite amount of possibility. The universe, according to our physics, is endless. So whatever's coming through our veils of reality, breaking into our four-dimensional existence, call it a ghost or whatever, is definitely there. They do, they can be ancestors bearing a message. Dreams are very fascinating for this. It's the unconscious speaking to the conscious and so on, because it's a whole vast archive of the mind that's going on that's simultaneous to this. So ghosts are a big aspect of things if there's some answers to be heard. And typically there's a lot of things that can be done in spell casting that can manifest answers and things like that, and ghosts can be very helpful. However, again, ghosts can be evil, whatever you want to call them, and very destructive. You're occupying a space they don't want you in, so it becomes some kind of demon gate, even though it's some past person that's just pissed off and causing a lot of problems, some guy recently spent $30,000 buying some possessed house around here, and he's like some famous ghost guy, people are going around looking for it now, and they're buying homes, and they're, getting all into it to try to really irk things up. But, you're introducing those things in your life, and you're not ready for it. You don't want your brake lines to go out. You end up going over the hill and smashing in the tree,
And that's interesting, because I think you would, if you asked, and especially the folks who listen to my show and who have called in with a lot of really strange things that they've seen or a lot of things that have affected them, they didn't ask for that. They weren't ready for it. And yet now here they are having to deal with some really strange stuff going on, whether it's their business, their home, or a place that they frequent. What do you tell people like that?
There are forces out there that are just, introduced in a person's life. They're just going along the tracks. They're in their own little race to exist. And, then all of a sudden the supernatural is invited or comes into their life and affects it. That's not good. For that individual, it definitely is mind-shattering, because first you have to now accept that all of this is real. And then second, you're like, how can we remedy it? There are rituals that I've written throughout my books that can be used as banishments, or certain things in our historic record that we can be borrowed from that can be used to banish it. And banishing means this: you are bringing your own will, your own intention to claim space. That's really what it is. If you're laboring under a curse and you're weighted down and your life is always wrong and you're having bad luck and it's just constant, there are things that can be done in order to lift that weight off. The banishment does that. Just like a ghost in the house. There's this ghost, say, and he's annoying, and he's breaking things, and things are popping and breaking, like electronics are ruining, and it's costing thousands of dollars. what you'll do is cast a banishment or an exorcism or whatever you want to call it to try to get that house back to you. You want to be the owner, so you're getting rid of the old owner. So you would have to use banishment, exorcism, forces of your own will, your own mind, your own spirit against that. So it creates a conflict. I mean, mankind strives on conflict. It loves its wars. You know, it's how we strive. We also learn through suffering. You know, mankind, if it learned through being good, we would not really be anywhere. We'd be sitting in Eden or whatever you want to call it and just be naked and in this illustrious reality. But unfortunately, mankind is a suffering creature, and it's how it learns. And so you would almost have to go to war with this creature, force, ghost thing in order to drive it out of your house. And most times, to be honest, you're going to lose just because the thing is so different from what you are and you're not used to it, or you don't even know how to go about it, unless you had somebody like myself or whatever that really kind of tangled with this. But then again, I would even have to want to have some intention to do it, and, you know, so on and so on. And there's even like priests and so on that do it now. I mean, exorcism is huge right now.
Sure.
Demons are like everywhere right now. People have no idea, but there's like 1,000 priests that are being brought in just as exorcists in these certain countries. You know, it's down in South America. It's going crazy with the gangs and the mutilations and the war and the upheaval and, you know, all the demon worship and all this stuff going on. It's amazing. But, I mean, it's just a trend of our society, but the ghost stuff is very hard to tackle. I mean, look at Amityville Horror. I mean, some people say it's a fraud, but I think it's real. I mean, that's just insane.
It's interesting because, and I'm gonna. There's a couple of questions that just came through the live chat room, and we've got about just a half hour to go here on the Edge of the Unknown before we wrap things up, folks. So if you're gonna get on board now. 717-298-7460 with my guest, Winter Lake. If you want to get on board the live chat room at allonebroadcast.com, please do. We've got a couple of questions that have come through there. I've got some emails, theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. Yes, I'm reading all the ones that are angry. We'll touch on those or whatever. It doesn't matter. I will always respond to any email that anyone sends me. I will always get back to you no matter what. So anyway, hey, that's the way you got to do things, right? So actually what is interesting was Dave actually had a question about time and lifespan. I'm going to get to that get right back to that. But actually, no, let's start with that. Dave asks the question, whoops, let me scooch right back up. Is time a vector quantity? Is it one directional? When does time end?
Well, I mean, time is only relative to our human existence. I mean, in physics and in looking at the entire logician of our science, it is only relative to us. And it's very simply said that as we progress on Earth, we're in this aging process and so on and so on. Time will be usurped and overcome as we advance as a creature with the Satanic singularity. As we merge with our machines, we will be able to be timeless. So time will be irrelevant. I mean, it will be a record. It will be a way to be keeping things in an order, to move things or to go out into space and time and conquer it itself. And time, you know, again, is very relative. But time has always been fascinating to me as a remote influencer and a remote viewer, because you can go back and forwards in time and you can just see different things that are going on and you know, like, even go live from Golgotha or something, you know. I mean, it's just different realities that can be seen and different experiences. But the future is shifting always with the present. So if you're in the present, things that we do now as a summation of our decisions, we influence the future as it progresses. And it, you know, it's like turning right when you should have turned left, and then you get bogged down in some kind of thing, or an event occurs, or you're meeting someone. So these random causal events are a big part of it as well. Thing. And that's why even as a Satanist or black magic practitioner, I seek to manipulate that as well. You know, the future is not set in stone, but I like to keep my future in a certain line, which is exponentially growing, you know, to a higher scale. But you never know, because, you never know about the events of the random. What if the wall suddenly collapses where we are, or, a comet comes in, or, that nuclear war occurs right now, or something occurs, if some kind of madman comes in, these things are, something of synchronicity that I find fascinating as well, that I constantly kind of run into. Not constantly, but in our humanity, as I was speaking about earlier, these events are kind of interesting, how they can turn the tide of our time moving forward as well. So time for me is fascinating. And even how time in our dreams work is fascinating, or how our minds work. We can live a whole lifetime in a dream that lasts just a few hours. How is that possible? So again, as our science fiction becomes more science fact moving forward, we can look at that. And time is very much being analyzed and watched by these people that are investing in the singularity, that are investing in life extension, that are looking into the future and trying to use all kinds of different methods. And trust me, they're all into the Illuminati. They're all into things that are like, how can we be the highest and best? How can we manipulate our time? How can we keep ourselves alive? Just like Kurzweil's obsession with DNA regeneration. That's going to be some kind of crazy mix-up if that ever comes about. We're already cloning, which is something that hasn't gotten really out of the bag yet, and it's just completely needless, really, when we're dealing with a population explosion.
We've got a call on the line here for Mr. Winter Laake. Go ahead. Who is this? You're on the edge of the unknown.
Hey, Mark, this is Dave.
Hey, Dave. How are you doing tonight?
Good. I have a question for Winter.
Absolutely. Winter, you ready for a question on the phone?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Do you believe that the human body has a soul? And if it does, what happens to it when it dies? Does time actually stop? Because we know time is a man-made concept. So I would like to know what your thoughts are on what actually happens to the human soul. Thanks, Mark.
The human soul is fascinating as well. And it does not have to be soul to attain Satanism or to attain black magic centrality. The human soul is the driver, it's the force that moves us in our spirit throughout the world. People deny their own soul all the time, or they're wrecking themselves all the time. In the afterlife, even when looking at the Egyptian Book of the Dead, there's probably, in my opinion, some kind of competition. A competition to survive on and to evolve and to go back into a birth record or some kind of reincarnation somewhere here or throughout the universe. It is an energy that strives to survive. However, there are forces that I have seen predominant that do devour this energy. So it's very possible that souls are very much devoured and sought after, which I absolutely believe exist. There's a huge, enormous aspect to the human soul. And it can invariably go a million different places to how it goes. It could vaporize, it could evolve, it could reincarnate, it could incarnate, it could just transmigrate. These are all big, high terms in the philosophy of what I'm speaking of, not to get too high-minded or some kind of absolutism.
No, that's right.
But, the human soul, again, like time itself, two very parallel, powerful things that I study all the time. Again, using that word. It just is something that is profound for me as a philosopher and as a doubter, because I look at it and I'm like, wow, how can we rationalize this? These two things that are so amazing in our existence. The human soul, it's just something that can be a haunter. It can be something that exists on. It could be, merged. It's many things, and a lot will be known in the future, and I think even the use of DMT might have an involvement with that. And I'm not a procurer or user of drugs. I'm just saying that this specific type of drug is really going to be something of an aspect that will evolve humans, or some kind of study that's going on with the government. I mean, the government is very paramount in using remote influencing through SRI, which is a psychic research on the East Coast, when they had Putov and these other masters of the psychic mind, which were physicists in very high pedigree educations and very intellectual, and really moved the United States in amazing ways. They're doing the same experimentations with DMT. And so these two things are kind of interesting to learning more about the soul as well. And time. Because on DMT, what I've been seeing is that it slows time, that you merge with your universe, that you have this utter terrible fear that you're going to die, that you realize you have a soul and all of this. And this is not lysergic dithalamide. I'm not talking about an LSD trip. I am talking about a direct changing manifestation within your own mental psychosis, your own mental ability. And, I mean, it's profound, and it's going to be more and more, in a relative state of our time and our soul.
Hey, we've got Winter Lake here on the Edge of the Unknown for one more segment. We're going to take one more break, taking you up until 10 o'clock. If you want to get on board, as Dave just did, feel free to give us a ring, 717-298-7460, theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. We got a couple of emails to get to. I've got actually an interesting question about remote viewing, which I think we're probably going to end with, and I will handle all the other emails that are coming in right now of people who are not really digging the show tonight, and hey, that's okay. If you don't dig it, that's all right. It is your reason to be if you are looking in a different direction, but that's what the show.
But you're going to have Bigfoot on, so that.
Next week we got Ron Bowles and Jim Sherman. We're going to be talking about Bigfoot. It's going to be awesome. We're going to have Bigfoot. Ben Radford on in a couple of weeks. We're going to talk more about chupacabras. Hey.
Those are fun things.
See? So hopefully...
We don't need the philosophy of the future. Let's just talk about the chupacabra creature.
There you go. Hey, Winter Lake is my guest. We're going to be back with more with him, and we'll hear from you right after that. It's the Edge of the Unknown. Back right after this.
Skirts and dresses, all just a click away. Check out the latest inventory online for pictures, sizing, and more. Have a particular item in mind you can't find anywhere else? Go to VintageWearsBoutique.com. Still stumped? Try their personal shopper service and let them do the work. Find the best in vintage clothing at VintageWearsBoutique.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us at VintageWears_ on Twitter, and see us on Pinterest and Tumblr. VintageWearsBoutique.com, where the past is your style.
Hey there, A1B listeners. This is Medium Julie MacDonald, host of Medium at Large. Join me Wednesday nights on All One Broadcast, where together with my guests, we journey into the many different worlds and expressions of spirit. Through mediumship, astrology, nature, indigenous technologies, alternate universes, otherworldly messengers, and much, much more. You just never know where we're going to land. So strap your seatbelts and tune in to Medium at Large on A1B. Listen, it's the only place to be.
For those interested in delving deep into the paranormal, why not look into the Paratech Store? Located at paratechstore.com, browsers will find the latest in investigative equipment, books, and more. Items go beyond technical equipment. Mojo bags, stone sets, and other curiosities await your exploration at the Paratech Store. paratechstore.com. Visit them today.
Without chupacabras, there's nothing to talk about. Back to the Edge of the Unknown.
Okay, we already established that without chupacabras, there's nothing to talk about. So that was the wrong liner that played, but that's my fault, and I'll take that on my own self. Hey, this is The Edge of the Unknown. My name is Mark Henry. Thanks for hanging out with me late on a Sunday evening, whether you're kicking your week off or you are working your way into the work week. I appreciate you being here. The radio show that I am doing right now is trying to be a show that is open-minded for a lot of different opinions, a lot of different approaches to this life and perhaps something that is beyond this life. And that's what I strive for. That is why I do the show. That is the beauty of the Edge of the Unknown. Everyone has a voice. We all play nice for at least 2 hours every Sunday evening, and I thank those who are running the wheels of steel at the All One Broadcast Radio Network and allowing me to do that. My guest this evening, Mr. Winter Laake. Check out his website, winterlaake.com, and spell Lake with 2 A's, Laake. We were just talking during the break, and I said, you know what? I was going to talk to you about remote viewing and that sort of thing. We're going to do that in a future show, because if Winter is cool enough to come back in a couple of months, we would love to have him back on, and we'll talk a little bit about his experience and his expertise with remote viewing here on The Edge of the Unknown. If you want to get on board, you've got a couple of more minutes to do so. 717-298-7460, The Edge of the Unknown at gmail.com. But what we were talking about in the break was skepticism and what is a skeptic. How do we define a skeptic? And I would like to talk a little bit about that for the rest of the time that we have as we take you up until 10 o'clock. Winter, let's talk a little bit about skepticism versus debunkers versus cynics.
It's a very odd thing. I mean, cynics, doubters, skeptics, it's very good. I think it's good to question things. That's the basis of all philosophy. However, when you're just skepticizing out of jealousy and you're trying to elevate yourself by stepping on something else or stepping on someone else's philosophy, that shows the weakness of your own nature, or that shows the weakness of your own, will. The power is standing on your own and not having to do that. However, skeptics that are, backing themselves up, that have a really something to say, then that would be something that in society that could be an aid. There's less and less of it in our society as we become more apathetic. People generally just want to have their television-fed reality, and they sit on their couch and they're in their rat race. Skepticism is very hard, just like activism is very hard now. These things are becoming things of the past almost, but it also makes us very weak against our demonic structure which we live under. As long as, you're coming from a space of your skepticism that is relative, that has some meaning to it, then it's great. But if you're just skepticizing to be doing that, that's like a waste of time. You're just being the loudest person in the room that's shouting and trying to be heard. And typically that's how we work in America, that, the loudest person that's shouting, whether he's just a babbling idiot, that's the one people are listening to. Whether it's right or wrong, you never know, but it's just something that's occurring. And it goes along the lines with all of these other things, like being a critic. If you're a critic and you're like, oh, this music is horrible, well, what gives you the right to say that any music is horrible when you don't make music yourself? Because it shows the ineptitude of your own existence against something or somebody who's actually trying to do something. I don't have time for critics that are just nameless and useless. There is a role for them because obviously maybe it's in our nature that we like to have criticism of something, but I find it to be a waste of time and that nothing really gets advanced. It used to be where we would be able to create a, cleanse or some kind of thing that, gives a filter, that a critic would be our filter. But really, I found it now to just everyone is a critic. Everyone is just evangelizing their skepticism and doing very little and just being apathetic and just going along the tracks.
And that's really interesting, because you would think that in this day and age, with all the television shows, with everything else that we're inundated with, more people would be into the fun side of the paranormal, the fun side of the occult, or whatever it would be. Hey, you know, we can have a TV show and this is going to be great. But the truth is, I think more people are taking a step back, and some of them, like myself, I am a skeptic believer, which is, I'm a fence sitter, I guess. That's the way
that's very good.
You know, but
very good.
Right. But and then you've got the other folks who are just like, you've got the true believers, and the this is all whatever. It's such a hard way to live, which is why I do this show, because I want to have people from all sides to talk about where they're coming from, so that either side has a better idea of what other people are thinking, what other people are doing.
I respect that, Mark. It takes cojones to do that. That's a huge step you've taken. And, you know, that you can embrace all these different genres and bring all these different introductions in to reveal something to the public that they wouldn't normally hear, because everything is in a conjugal. Everything in our media infotainment is very controlled. People are being interneted into two central streams of media, being Yahoo and MSN, despite what people believe. Out of the innumerable things, print media is dying. You are a messenger, and you are conveying something that people, as they're being controlled, don't realize it, because they do live in conditioning and they are apathetic. There's less and less showing to the polls to vote for some kind of nonsense, and that only makes the politicians in a much stronger stead. That's why our Constitution is being belittled. That's why our rights are being taken away. That's why we're being overtaxed and all of these things. There will be a wall that's hit, but there's various ways we're going to hit it that's going to be simple. But you are revealing a purpose, and, you know, it is very hard to bring all these different things to have a discussion because, you're just going to get attacked.
Trust me, I get attacked plenty during the week.
Well, you look like thick-skinned, you're a very nice person, you know. It's not like you're out trying to hurt somebody, so you're just conveying a message, and you're like one of a million people, so there you go.
I've got some crappy emails that I'm not going to talk about, but I'll get to those on my own time. I've got one last email, and this one comes from Kay. How does all this stuff get so bent out of the truth? Where is the rational side of all this? I've always been one way or no way for far too long, and now I'm thinking in a different way. I've even heard of people making fun of those who have coexist stickers on their cars. That's not right. This world is messed up. Kay, thanks for writing in.
Well, it's very hard to coexist when someone's trying to kill you, and that's what's happening in this reality. If you run out of money in this country, you're dead. I mean, you're a derelict or you're being kicked. It's just this, you have to realize where you're at in the world. Coexist is kind of a weird phenomenon, because the world is not really as messed up as it's always been. It's just the nature of the beast. It's actually kind of in a lull right now, but that lull will hurriedly be wrecked when everything starts to run out, which is impending. And that means that these fossil fuels that we're being pushed into, we're not getting into our super technology that we should do. But there are elements of the satanic singularity which will create that superior-inferior thing. So there's all these different variables going in. And plus we have our agencies and our governments and all these different other things that are going on. And it's just going to be a free-for-all. It's a war of all against all. And it's just the nature of the beast of humanity. It goes through these. It goes through these death pangs from time to time, I referenced Rome before. That collapsed in a huge bloodthirsty upheaval. And something else came out of it. So it's just, it's the nature of how we flow in the ebb and tide of our reality of Satanism.
So before we wrap things up here this evening, what would you say to anybody who is kind of sitting on the fence like I am, or to anybody else? Where would you push them to learn a little bit more about where you're coming from? And Jesus, we didn't even talk about your books this evening.
Oh, don't worry about it. Yeah, I would buy Black. I would pick up my book, Black Magic is Might. It is the philosophy for the future of the strength to embrace yourself and know you are the highest and the best creature, Luciferian power on planet Earth. I think that book in itself, written in 2012, is the premier account of what's to come and how to handle it and what you can do to empower yourself and overcome being downtrodden.
Well, let's do this. Let's make a promise to do this again. If you are willing to come back on the Edge of the Unknown, I would love to have you on.
Thank you, Mark. It'd be great.
Hey, it would be awesome. Hang on. Stay on the line. I'm just going to wrap this baby up here. Everybody out there, whether you're kicking your week off or wrapping it up, I appreciate you hanging out with me. My name is Mark Henry. You can reach me at any time throughout the week. TheEdgeOfTheUnknown at gmail.com. You can always find me at Edge of the Unknown radio show on Facebook. My guest this night has been... This night? What a terrible thing to say. My guest tonight has been Mr. Winter Laake. WinterLaake.com. Check out his website. And, for those of you who have obviously voiced your concern about not liking this program, that's okay. I'll talk to you a little bit about that when we're off the air. And for those of you who have suggestions for future shows, please reach out to me whenever you feel free to do so. I answer all of my email. I will answer anything that is sent to me through Facebook. So, we'll take care of that from there. Want to remind everybody about some cool shows coming up in the next few weeks. Ron Bowles and Jim Sherman from the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization will be my guest next week. On the 23rd of February, Richard Southall. He is an author, and he's written a really cool book called Haunted Route 66. We're going to talk a little bit about ghosts down the line as you're driving off to the West Coast. And on March 2nd, my buddy, Mr. Thomas Fusco, the author of Behind the Cosmic Veil, will be in for his quarterly checkup to see what's going on. I appreciate everybody hanging out with me late on a Sunday night. Again, my thanks to Mr. Winter Laake. He will be back here on the Edge of the Unknown, much to others' chagrin, I'm sure. But I had a really good time. No, please, you've been terrific, and I really appreciate you hanging out with me here. Again, check out his website.
You just say, the Grim Reaper is coming back. Oh, my gosh. There you go.
Hey, look, everybody, check out his website, winterlake.com. And remember, until the next time, when you've stopped questioning, you've stopped thinking. My name is Mark. You're listening to The Edge of the Unknown. See you next time here on the All One Broadcast Radio Network.